Hello and welcome to Musical Exploring Music with Kalyani. In the second episode of this series that we are doing, today we have someone with us who held the Sarangi in his hand for the first time at the age of 6, played his first stage concert at the age of 16, and today is one of the finest young musicians in the country and is also considered as a torchbearer of the Sarangi tradition. Not only that, he also holds a master's degree in business administration and has worked in the corporate sector for over a decade. Yes, he recently came up with an album which also made it through the first ballot rounds of 63rd Grammy Awards. Let that sink in, that's true. And if you haven't guessed it already, our guest for the day is Narayan. Hi Harsh, welcome to Musical.
Hi Kalyani, thank you for inviting me over for this interview, and I very much look forward to speaking with you today.
Well, so thank you for joining us, and let's get to the discussion.
Absolutely.
This beautiful piece of art that you are holding in your hand right now, Sarangi. Not many people actually know a lot of things about this instrument, a lot of facts, how it's made up, what is it made of. So could you just tell the viewers of Musical what this instrument consists of and your style of playing it?
Absolutely. So, Sarangi is one of the most oldest and the traditional instruments of India. And as you see, I'll take a little bit of time to explain the structure of the instrument.
Please.
It is carved out of a single piece of wood. And like any other stringed instrument, it has a sound box, which is again carved, which is covered with leather patchment. And on top of that, there is a thin piece of leather which supports the bridge through which all the strings run. And this piece is important because, as you can imagine, there is a lot of load of the strings that come on the leather on the instrument. This instrument has more or less 40 strings in all. There are three main playing strings, gut strings, and we have in all about 37 resonating strings, which are steel strings, which are also responsible for the deep resonance of the instrument. So as we produce the note, these strings vibrate in the background.
That sounds beautiful.
Yes, thank you. And the instrument it's a bowed instrument.
Yes.
So the sound is produced using a bow. The hair is typically horsetail hair, which is also used for violin, viola, cello, etc., as these are the bowed instruments. However, the left hand technique is very different from that of a violin or a viola, whereas in those instruments, notes are produced using the fingertips. Whereas on the Sarangi, notes are produced using the cuticle of the finger. So you have to press against the string, and like on the violin, you have to press on the string. So you have to press against the string to produce the notes, which obviously makes it technically challenging in a way. So this is about the Sarangi, and in all, although traditionally there are 3 octaves, full octaves that we can play on the instrument. However, my grandfather Pandit Narayan ji, who's a legendary Sarangi maestro, as you may all know, has covered full 4 octaves on this instrument, which you can hear in almost all of his commercial recordings. And that is something that he started doing extensively during his performing career.
Can the viewers of Musical have the privilege of...
Absolutely. So I will have a quick demonstration on how the notes are produced and also cover the full 4 octaves of the instrument.
That was absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. So this is in brief about the Sarangi, about its structure, the way it's played. And of course, we can get into greater detail, but just a brief version of what this instrument is.
Okay. Now, just moving on to a little practical part of it. Despite being such a beautiful and gratifying, rewarding instrument, it unfortunately remains a rarity on the center stage of Hindustani classical music performances, unlike many other instruments. Uh, would you tell us about why this remained a rarity and the contribution that your grandfather and Guru Pandit Ram Narayan ji has had in bringing it onto the center stage and getting it the dignity that it deserves?
Absolutely. And as you rightly pointed out, that it's been very unfortunate that this instrument has always remained in the background. And it has always remained as an accompanying instrument, or always not really had the center stage that it really deserved, in spite of it being such a deep instrument. And my grandfather, Pandit Ram Narayan ji, a legendary figure, and came as a savior of this instrument and saw this instrument in a very different way. For the first part of his career, of course, he accompanied probably some of the greatest vocalists of our country, like Ustad Bade Ghulam Ali Khan Sahab, Pandit Umkarnath Thakur ji, Pandit Krishna Rao Shankar Pandit ji, who were really encouraging to him. However, when these musicians, due to age, started slowing down and were not performing as often, my grandfather always felt that there's a lot of music that's still left inside him that he cannot express by a mere role of an accompanist. So that's when he started playing solo Sarangi. And in fact, HMV released his long playing record in the year 1950, 3-minute recordings. And that was broadcast all over India at that time. And for the very first time, people started seeing Sarangi very differently. And that's where the scene for Sarangi really started changing. And then obviously he had the opportunity to go abroad. He in the mid-50s, he went to China. After that, he started touring Europe from the early 60s and presented Sarangi in its best form. So
Indeed.
He started giving it a totally different outlook, and he presented this instrument on the best classical stages all across the world. Made numerous commercial recordings which are easily available today on the most digital platforms, as we see. So that's how the role of the Sarangi, being just merely an accompanying instrument, changed to being a mainstream instrument like how we see it today. So in brief, this has been the journey for the instrument, and I feel very proud to be associated to him being my grandfather and my guru as well. And I'm very lucky that I got some of the key insights and that he's brought into Sarangi playing, and I try my best to present that as well.
All right. About this instrument, whenever anything is spoken about this instrument, there are a lot of things that are attached to it, or that are just implicit into it. That it's a sad instrument.
Right.
Right. It's a very difficult instrument. Also, as regards the history of this instrument, as to where it comes from, where has it been originated. There are a lot of myths that go around about Sarangi, which is also one of the reasons why it's not approached easily by people.
Right.
So as regards these myths, or these misconceptions as we like to call them, would you share your insights about what these myths are and your attempt at busting them?
No, absolutely. I think you raise a very important point here, which is a huge concern for me, and it should be a huge concern for all my brothers and sisters who are playing Sarangi out there today. Is number one, the point that you mentioned, that it's being associated to being a sad instrument, which is not necessarily true, because the other name for this instrument is Sarangi, which means 100 colors, 100 musical colors, right? So the fact that it's been associated to only one emotion, which is sad, being sad, it's not true. Like, I would like to throw in an example here. Like, and again, I'm going to come back to my grandfather because of the enormous work that he's done throughout his lifetime. He spent a good amount of time playing in Bollywood music, film songs also. So he's played sad songs, of course, but he's also played romantic songs. He's also played very peppy songs, you know. Like, one example that I can give is Divana Hua Badal song. It's an extremely romantic song, and he's played Sarangi throughout that song. And I don't think anyone can say that, you know, in that romantic song, when the Sarangi comes in, it becomes sad. He does give it a very romantic feel in that song. And the reason why I mention this example is because a lot of people will be able to associate to Bollywood music. And it'll be easier for them to connect with these examples. So this is just one example of it not being a sad instrument at all.
Correct.
Like another example, Kahin Pe Nigahein Kahin Pe Nishana, again a very famous song. It's a very peppy song. Right? He has played Sarangi in that too, and by no means that it appears to be sad. So that's one myth about the Sarangi that definitely needs to change. The other thing, I do see a lot of content out there where you know, people do say that, oh my God, Sarangi is such a difficult instrument, and but then no instrument is an easy instrument. Like, playing the sarod is not an easy instrument. Playing sitar is not easy. And playing tabla is not easy. So Sarangi is no different. Of course, it has its technical challenges, but the reason why people claim is difficult, I don't believe, in my opinion, that's not true. One of those reasons being that, oh, they're extremely painful on your fingers, which isn't true. I think I've been playing Sarangi all my life, and there's not a mark on my finger.
Okay.
Right? Again, this is a technique which my grandfather has bought in, where you can play the Sarangi easily without hurting your hands or without hurting your fingers. So with, you know, that reason being that Sarangi is difficult because it hurts your fingers does not make any sense, because it's the same thing happens when you play the sarod, the same thing happens when you play the sitar. It's not easy on your fingers. All they have to do is change the perception, change the outlook, and find a better way to do it. For that, it's a very simple solution, is you find the right guru. You come to the right people who point you in the right direction. A very difficult path of understanding this instrument will start becoming easier.
So now when you are teaching
Yes.
your students this instrument, do you make it a point, alongside giving them practical training, do you also make it a point to tell them the facts about Sarangi? Because, you know, there are facts and then there are myths. So how do you deal with that when students approach you?
Yes, absolutely. I've been, in fact, in the last couple of years, have been heavily invested in teaching as well. I have a lot of students that are coming over, and also I've been teaching online. I make sure that, you know, with the basic technique of Sarangi playing and, you know, how it should be played, I make sure to tell about the history of the instrument too, and about all these myths that we have spoken about. And for them, it's important not only to learn the instrument, but also how to the perception that they need to have about the instrument also has to be clear at the same time. So I make sure that those inputs are given to the students as well.
All right. Well, moving on. Like you spoke about the Sarangi and how you came to be trained in Sarangi because your grandfather and Guru Pandit Ram Narayan ji, so you had a tutor at home. It always, I always keep wondering how it must have been like for you. What your childhood must have been like, having two gurus at home at the same time.
Yeah.
And having and picking and choosing one of the instruments, or out of the two that you have had in your house, out of the two that you have had the legacy of. Could you tell us about your initial training, how it started, and how it developed?
Sure. So as a child, and after school, I would be back home by around 4 p.m. And that was the time for my grandfather to sit for his practice. And as soon as I would come home, I would keep my bag and freshen up, and that's what he would be doing. And and as a child, I saw more of him because my father was touring quite often. So he would be out on a tour maybe for a month or a couple of months, and that time my grandfather had reduced the amount of touring that he was doing. So I saw him more, and that's how I started getting inclined towards the sarangi. So as a child, I heard the sarangi more than I heard the sarod. So, and then one fine day I told my grandfather, I would like to learn this instrument. And, he was happy, and he prepared a small instrument for me and got me started off. However, one thing I must say here, that I've had teachers at home, it's a plural. My father is also my guru. I've also learned a lot from my aunt, Aruna Narayan, who lives in Toronto. She's also one of the finest sarangi players that we have today. So all three of them are my gurus, and I have learned a lot from all of them.
Right.
So, but anyway, this is how my childhood went about, more with my grandfather, and I started learning from him. And a lot of people would think that he's a very strict teacher, but that's not the case. I think he taught me very patiently with a lot of love, and he spent a lot of time with me. So I'm lucky and privileged to have had this kind of love and honor from him.
Right. That gives me the cue for my next question. How do you look at this privilege of yours of being born and brought up in a musician's family and now being a full-time musician yourself? How do you think it impacts your music and your musical career now?
Absolutely. The number one privilege that I would say that I have teachers at home. I didn't have to go out anywhere looking out for a teacher. That's the number one privilege. The other thing, when I'm sitting at home and practicing, even today, my grandfather would walk in my room, or my father would walk in my room, and don't do it this way, you do it this way, or you practice this. When you practice this, you will correct this. So I have inputs coming in all the time, no matter what hour of the day I'm practicing. So, Kalyani, this is the main privilege that I have coming from a family that I come from. However, I must say one thing, that just because you're coming from a star family, that doesn't mean that everything is given to you on a platter, which unfortunately a lot of people think that way. However, you still have to have the capability to absorb all that knowledge that's been given to you. So that also comes from the universe. You have to believe in God right there. So it's not easy, and just because you're coming from a family of legends, that doesn't mean you can be launched easily. And that's as probably you can see, that's not the case with my family. So but I just wanted to take some time and explain this to the viewers today.
Right. And like they say, there are two sides to every coin. So are there any challenges also that you faced due to being from such a legendary family?
Well, I think challenge in the sense that obviously there are a lot of expectations on your shoulder. That, oh my God, he is the son of Pandit Brij Narayan ji, he's the son of grandson of Pandit Ram Narayan ji. So that pressure is always there on you, and that's going to remain till the end. Although it kind of make your shoulders heavy, but that's all right. I sort of enjoy that little bit of that challenge too.
Like I mentioned in your introduction also, that you have obtained a master's degree in business administration, and you've also worked full-fledged in the
Yes.
corporate sector for over a decade, for about 11 or 12 years.
Correct.
So two things here. One, how did you manage your music back then? That's one. And two, whether your working schedule or whether your working environment or your engagement or commitments towards the work, how did that impact your musical commitments?
Sure. So, again, these inputs are, the direction given by my grandfather and my father, that, it is obviously good to learn music and have this knowledge and this great skill, but it is very important to develop yourself as a person too. And they encouraged me to complete my education, and like how you mentioned, I completed my MBA, and then I worked with the corporate for 10 plus years. I would say I had very good experience because working in the corporate, working with different people, they teach you a lot. So I was very fortunate to have had time spent out there in the world to get a completely different experience from why we are sitting here today. While I was studying, while I was working, I had a very fixed schedule of when I need to practice, when I need to go out there and learn from my grandfather and take lessons from my father. So I basically used to just stick to that schedule. And mind you, even while I was working, I was still playing and presenting the Sarangi in its, in the most respectable and in the finest way. I've had the good fortune to have a few tours with my grandfather all over Europe. Then I have completed a couple of tours of the US while I was working. And here I must really thank some of my seniors while I was working. They gave me this opportunity to take that long break, because if you're touring, you at least need about 3 weeks off from work. So most times I've had good seniors who have supported this passion of mine. And as you can imagine, the corporate world cannot be easy. There's a lot of competition. Cutthroat competition is the right word. So
Correct.
that way I have been very fortunate, and I really thank those seniors who supported this passion of mine and allowed me to have those travels and to go out there and play the concerts while I was at work. That's basically how my experience in the corporate has been.
Okay.
And
I can also say that, while you're saying that, you've had a good experience shuttling between the two, your work commitments and your music commitments. It sometimes so happens that even your work environment needs you to be creative.
True.
And if you are into music and if you have explored your musical potential, it also helps you being creative, thinking out of the box at your workplace.
Right.
So we've actually done a series on this. I will put the link to that in the description, and whoever is interested, please go and watch that series. I will give you some additional insights. Coming back. So you do not necessarily need to compromise on one thing to be good at the other.
Absolutely not. And again, it's amazing because how futuristic and how forward thinking my family has been. They have always mentioned you don't need 12-15 hours of practice every day, because in times today no one can afford to do that. What if you practice just for 2 hours, 3 hours a day, but practice the correct thing, practice like the way it should be practiced, and you're home. Right? So this is another important thing, which everything boils down to the word talim. Right? A very commonly used term today. But it's the duty of the student to reach out to the guru and ask for direction.
Absolutely. And it also, it strikes me now that it doesn't really matter how much, what matters is how well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, well, coming to the next portion of the same topic, is that now you made a switch 2 years ago.
Right.
About 2 years ago. How difficult was it for you? Because, art is there in its place, but you also have a family to take care of.
Absolutely.
You also have a life to lead on. You also need to pay the bills.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, were there any reservations that you had before making this switch? And how is it going after you actually made the switch?
It was a very thorough thought, to be honest. And however, I have a calling for music for many of the reasons which we spoke about today. That and it was something that I know that I will be happy doing through the rest of my life. With the corporate world, as I said, I have been lucky and I have enjoyed my time there. But that's it. I don't think I can continue working in that sort of environment with that sort of work anymore. So with that perspective, it was easy to make the switch. And as soon as I made the switch, I had a fantastic tour for the US, which happened that year. But then unfortunately, the pandemic hit us, and many of my musician brothers and sisters and seniors have suffered through that, and I hope we are through it very soon now. But this has given me the opportunity to come back, ponder on my music, work on myself, and also take up teaching extensively. So that's what I have been. That's how it has been going for me in the past couple of years.
Okay, perfect. Harsh, while you were talking about your musical career as it went along, along with touring abroad with your grandfather, you've also toured recently, like you just mentioned right now. So, what has been your experience of performing abroad? Is it any different from performing in India? If it is, how? And in general, what are the observations that you've made about the audience in India and abroad? Or could you
Sure.
elaborate upon that?
Sure, absolutely. So, of course, it is a privilege to be able to present this instrument abroad as well to the audiences there. And one of the key things and instructions that I've received from my grandfather is that even when I'm playing abroad, I should present music in its purest form. And another thing that I would like to mention here is the tremendous amount of respect that that we receive from the foreign audiences. It is overwhelming at times, especially in all over Europe, where board instruments are considered really in high regard, like the violin, viola, cello. They have their place in the orchestras that they have there. And Sarangi being from the same family of board instruments, so their way of noticing your right hand technique, your left hand technique is tremendous. And you cannot take them for a ride. You have to be very precise with your technique and skill, especially when you're playing anywhere in Europe, because you're going to have these Western musicians come and listen to you, and they listen to you very, very finely.
Well, that's absolutely true. And considering the heritage value that is also attached to this music, along with the artistic value, it is important to put your music out there. And I'm really glad that you're actually doing it and are practically implementing all of that in your life. Well, so moving on, our research team has taken some effort and found out that you're also passionate about something else, which is fitness.
Oh, yes.
So, can you elaborate a bit on your passion for fitness and also throw some light on whether it has impacted your music? Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You've also authored an article, the link to which I'm going to put in the description, so the viewers can take a read at it and your take on that.
Yes, I mean, I've always been a big fan of fitness, and I've done that through my teens, and I do that even today. I think it's not only about building a good physique. I think it also mentally helps you with a lot of things. It a lot of probably the negative energy where you have stored somewhere. It's it's an outlet that works very well. But even from my school days, I've always liked to participate in races and participate in some sort of athletics. I'm a big boxing fan. I love American boxing, so I follow the sport very closely. And
Okay.
I also like to do some boxing workouts. I don't fight, but just the workouts to keep fit. And I enjoy that tremendously. It helps me also in my music because you have to sit for long hours for practice. You're sitting at 2 hours, maybe 3 hours at a go and catching up. So it helps in that as well. It helps you keep your energy levels high.
Well, moving on to the final topic of our discussion for today, music production. Music production is not new to you. Back in 2016, you came up with an album with Times Music India called Scintillating Sarangi. I'm putting a link to that also in the description. But recently when Dhanurvadya happened,
Yes.
and it made through the first ballot round of Grammys,
Correct. Yes.
how did it feel? That's a very cliche question to ask, and so I'm not going to ask it. But how do you perceive your album getting shortlisted for Grammys, and the very fact that it went till that stage, it in itself is an achievement, but that also means recognition.
It does.
That also
absolutely.
means the beginning of a bigger journey, right? So your views on that, and if you have any further future plans of music production, please.
Yes, absolutely. I think Dhanurvadya has been a special album in many ways.
Okay.
And I would like to give a little backstory on how it happened. That I was on a tour to the US and I had played a concert in Denver, Colorado. And my next concert was in Philadelphia. And I had about 8 days, 7 to 8 days break in between till my next concert. And I really didn't know what to do. So I said, while I have the time, why don't we just produce some music? And because I had the time, I recorded that album stretched across 2 days. So I did one rag on one day and the other two rags on the second day. And at that time, there were no expectations. I said, you know what, let's just have some good music. Let's play from the heart, and if it turns out well, we'll release it.
Okay.
So and I was happy with the flow of the music in that album, and we decided to go ahead and release it. It was released by an American company called Tala Records. And then once the album was out, and I got an email saying that it is in the first round of at the Grammys. I said, wow, that was not expected at all. Of course, it's an honor. It's I was very happy to receive this news. But more than that, I am happy the fact that the album got noticed. So that's a very special album. Please give that a listen, and I'm sure music lovers and viewers will enjoy that.
100%. All right, that brings us to the end of this beautiful discussion. Thank you so much, Harsh, once again for joining Musical and giving us out so many insights about music and your career and this beautiful instrument called Sarangi.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. And,
of course, it has been a pleasure for us to have you on Musical, and I'm pretty sure the viewers of Musical have also got to know a lot of new things about Sarangi today and about music and music industry in general. So make sure to put your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to engage with you out there. If you have liked this video, make sure to click on the like button. I have put the link to Harsh's channel in the description. Do click on that and subscribe, because he is recently coming out with a lot of amazing content. I'm pretty sure you would love it. Please share this video with all of those you think need to see this, and for more such content, subscribe to my channel. See you on Saturdays. Bye.